I'm Katie Couric. Tonight, they survived Katrina. Now there's a new threat to their health. A CBS News investigation finds those FEMA trailers they're living in may be making them sick. We confront the FEMA director.
Are you concerned about the health of the children in those trailers?
Also tonight, eye-opening testimony about how easy it is to buy drugs on the internet without a prescription.
The internet has become a pharmaceutical candy store.
How marketers are turning a kid's cell phone into a cash register, ringing up big bills for mom and dad. And tracing the roots of Barack Obama. Could they be planted in the old sod?
Here's to Obama!
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Hello, everyone. We're beginning tonight with a CBS News exclusive. Another scandal in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. Many survivors of the killer storm are now getting sick, and their government-provided trailers may be to blame. Nearly 2 years after Katrina, 86,000 families are still living in FEMA trailers, and every day more and more of them are developing health problems. We have two reports tonight, beginning with our chief investigative correspondent, Armin Katayan.
When Hurricane Katrina tore apart homes here in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, Angela Orcutt and her young son Nicky found shelter in this FEMA trailer, meant for weekend trips. That trip has now lasted 21 months, something these trailers were never built for. Time that has turned them into unregulated experiments on the health of thousands still stuck inside.
What were the symptoms?
Pretty much just the constant coughing. He would just, you could hear it just in his chest.
You have such a wide range.
Dr. Scott Needle, a pediatrician in Bay St. Louis, was the first to notice Nicky was not alone. Dozens of his patients were suffering from the same symptoms that kept coming back: coughing, burning eyes, nosebleeds, sinus infections, with one curious connection.
Every one of them said, you know, we are living in a FEMA trailer. And not only that, but, you know, little Johnny wasn't having these problems before we moved into that trailer.
Trailers with floors and cabinets built with particle board containing the chemical formaldehyde. Under hot, humid conditions, formaldehyde lets off toxic fumes, especially harmful to young lungs.
It's the long-term carcinogen issue that really concerns me.
The material that was brought in here had a foul odor and things to it like that, and everybody through the plant could smell it.
Terry Sloan was a floor supervisor at this Gulfstream coach factory in Etna Green, Indiana. Gulfstream built more than 50,000 stripped-down travel trailers. Sloan says his crew worked at a breakneck pace for months, which he says forced the company to use cheaper wood products.
Quality suffered dramatically because of the drive and pressure to put these trailers out.
Executives at Gulfstream Coach declined an on-camera interview. Instead, the company issued this statement saying, in part, for the FEMA trailers, it used components and materials that met or exceeded industry standards. But there are no federal standards for formaldehyde. The Environmental Protection Agency recommends a workplace exposure limit of 0.1 parts per million. Last year, the Sierra Club tested 31 travel trailers in Mississippi and found that virtually all had levels of formaldehyde above that limit. And CBS News has discovered this internal FEMA document that cites cancer as a potential job hazard for those just inspecting the trailers. FEMA's recommendation for fixing the problem: open the windows and turn on the air conditioner.
I'm Armin Katayan from CBS News, and I'd like to ask, I don't want to talk to you, I'd like to talk to Mr. Paulson.
FEMA refused to grant us an interview, but we caught up with the agency's top administrator, David Paulson, on Capitol Hill.
There's dozens of children getting sick, respiratory problems in those trailers right now. We've been in Mississippi, and I've talked to those pediatricians down there who are seeing dozens of kids with respiratory problems.
I don't know that that's the cause. And if that's the case, that that they're getting sick, I'm sorry that's happening. I don't know that the trailers are causing that.
As for Angela Orcutt, she's long suspected something in here was making her son sick. So we tested it with the exact same meter used by FEMA. Our results read 0.17.
So your number essentially is 70% higher than what the EPA standard is.
It's very scary.
Armin Katayan, CBS News, Bay St. Louis, Mississippi.
I'm Cheryl Atkinson in Washington, where the billions in federal tax dollars spent on Katrina recovery haven't been able to get Lucille Recastner back home.
This is where the roof is gone off the house.
A lifelong resident of New Orleans, she's now 500 miles and a mound of red tape from home in a Dallas rental apartment.
I really, right now, I don't know who to go to anymore to get any help.
Like many from New Orleans' devastated 9th Ward, she doesn't have the money to make her house livable again. In fact, according to a draft report from the GAO obtained by CBS News, only a small portion of federal assistance is available for longer-term rebuilding. Out of $110 billion from Congress, less than $20 billion has gone to replace buildings like homes, schools, and hospitals. Most of the money was spent on emergency needs right after the storm.
A bulk of it went for emergency federal programs that had nothing to do with the rebuilding of this great region.
21 months after Katrina, about half of New Orleans' 455,000 residents haven't returned. More than 136,000 people have applied for federal grants or loans to get back in their homes, but fewer than 17,000 have gotten any money. And 60% of schools remain closed to students.
Billions of dollars are waiting to be used, but are tied up in bureaucratic bottlenecks somewhere between Washington, D.C. and the people who need it.
And then there's the more than $850 million in aid offered by foreign countries. Much of it was turned away because the U.S. had no program in place to process it. Only $126 million was used. There are some success stories. The middle-class community of Lakeview that was under 15 feet of water has managed a mini boom. Homes are selling twice as fast as before Katrina. But Lucille Recastner remains in Dallas, still being forced to pay a mortgage on a house she hasn't lived in since August of 2005. Cheryl Atkinson, CBS News, Washington.
Now, there was barely a mention of Katrina during the second Republican presidential debate held last night at the University of South Carolina in Columbia. But for what they did talk about, here's our senior political correspondent, Jeff Greenfield.
Beyond the punchlines,
we've had a Congress that spent money like John Edwards at a beauty shop.
And the dramatic moments.
I don't think I've ever heard that before, and I've heard some pretty absurd explanations for September 11.
The theme of the night had more to do with the legacy of the man who had died just hours earlier, Reverend Jerry Falwell, who was present at the creation nearly 30 years ago of a movement that has made Christian conservatives a critical element of the Republican coalition. Again and again, candidates spoke to that base, appealing for their support, explaining past positions, even arguing that social conservatives should look beyond disagreements. Here, for example, is Kansas Senator Sam Brownback, explaining why he would compel a woman to carry the child of her rapist.
And I think we can explain it when we look at it for what it is, a beautiful child of a loving God that we ought to protect in all circumstances, in all places.
Here is ex-Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney explaining how the sight of cloning moved him from supporting abortion rights to opposing them.
And we saw human life, rack after rack, that's going to be experimented upon and then disposed. I said Roe v. Wade has gone to such an extent that we've cheapened the value of human life.
Here is Senator John McCain turning a question about immigration into a jab at Romney's move.
I have kept a consistent position on right to life, and I haven't changed my position on even-numbered years or have changed because of the different offices that I may be running for.
But it was left to former Mayor Rudy Giuliani to turn a question about social issues into the invocation of the Republicans' #1 target.
She's also said, with regard to taxes, that we have to take money from you in order to give it to the common good. Republicans should be uniting to make certain that what the liberal media is talking about, our inevitable defeat, doesn't happen.
Giuliani's not-so-subtle message, whatever our disagreements, he's saying, you need me to beat your real enemy. That message was aimed squarely at the constituency that Reverend Falwell helped bring to a dominant position in the Republican Party. Jeff Greenfield, CBS News, New York.
Turning now to Iraq, where there was a deadly car bombing today in a Shiite neighborhood northeast of Baghdad. At least 32 people were killed, 50 others wounded. Some victims say chlorine gas may have been used, but police deny that. Also today, new mortar attacks in Baghdad. At least 9 mortar rounds hit the U.S.-controlled Green Zone. 2 Iraqis were killed and 10 others hurt. Meanwhile, about Prince Harry going off to war, Mark Phillips reports the British military did an about-face today.
Prince Harry once said he didn't drag himself through officer training school to end up not going to Iraq, but that's exactly what he did. After months of go, no-go dithering about whether to deploy him, Britain's chief general today changed his mind again. It's no-go.
There have been a number of specific threats. These threats expose not only him, but also those around him to a degree of risk that I now deem unacceptable.
Attacks on British troops have increased lately, and it's now thought insurgents plan to target the prince directly. Harry's worst fear has come true.
The last thing I want to do is have my soldiers sent away to Iraq or wherever like that, and for me to be held back home, twiddling my thumbs, thinking, well, what about David? What about Derek? You know.
But now David and Derek will go, and Prince Harry won't. Killing or capturing a prince might have been a huge insurgent propaganda victory. A prince not going to war at all is a victory in its own right. Bowler hats and not combat helmets now seem to be in Harry's future, and questions are being asked why one soldier's life is worth more than any other. Mark Phillips, CBS News, London.
And there is more CBS News ahead. Up next, teenagers overdosing on prescription drugs. Drugs they can get without a prescription all too easily right on the internet. You can add New Jersey to the list of states battling wildfires, though firefighters there are hoping rain tonight will help. The fires have burned nearly 14,000 acres since yesterday. A dozen houses have been damaged and more than 2,000 homes have been evacuated. Officials believe the New Jersey wildfires may have been started by a flare dropped by a National Guard F-16 during a training exercise. Now to an issue that worries so many parents these days, teens and drugs. In years past, they could get them on a street corner. Now they're getting them online. The Senate heard one horror story after another about that today, and Wyatt Andrews was there.
Like a lot of parents, Francine Haight didn't realize what her 17-year-old son Ryan was doing on the internet.
I found Ryan in his bed, lifeless.
Ryan died from an overdose of Vicodin and Valium, drugs he purchased online with a credit card and a story.
He had said he was 21. He said he had been in a car accident and had back pain.
In some alarming testimony before the Senate, experts described illegal internet drug sales as the next American epidemic. A Columbia University report counted 187 websites actively selling painkillers like OxyContin and Vicodin. 84% of the sites did not require a prescription, and none of the sites asked if the buyer was a child.
The internet has become a pharmaceutical candy store, offering a high to any kid with a credit card at the click of a mouse.
Every year, just OxyContin and Vicodin are going to more than 500,000 high school students.
Parts of this hearing got heated when senators asked the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, how to attack the problem.
I don't know what's wrong with DEA.
And the DEA representative had no new proposals.
We're not prepared to make a recommendation of a specific measure.
When will you be?
I can't give you an answer right now, sir.
But the panel did offer ideas. The first, have internet providers allow parents to block access to prescription drug websites and ask the credit card companies not to process payments to what are called rogue websites known to law enforcement.
Suppose you couldn't pay for it with your credit card. Suppose you had to get cash, or suppose you had to write a check. It wouldn't prevent it, but it would make it a lot harder to do.
Fixing the online drug problem will be tough because now most online sellers and websites have gone overseas. And Congress, just like the DEA, is just now focusing on that. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Up next, kids and cell phones ringing up big bills for parents. This father's solution? He started his own phone company. That story's next, so please hold. It seems like every kid these days is walking around with a cell phone, and in fact, 1 out of every 4 kids between 8 and 12 has one. That's more than 5 million kids, and that number is expected to double in the next 3 years, which is why marketers are targeting the kids on those cell phones often unbeknownst to their parents until they get the bill. Richard Schlesinger continues our series, Gotta Have It, the hard sell to kids.
Eleanor Neal is just 8 years old, and already she's part of the cell phone set.
I'm calling you.
There are phones targeting kids as young as 5 and sold in toy stores, but Eleanor thinks she's too old for those.
Basically, all you can do is call your parents. The more kiddie phones.
But grown-up phones come with grown-up problems for grown-ups, as 14-year-old Lauren Fodeman and her father Doug found out about 1 hour after she got hers.
We hadn't even left the mall, and the phone rings. And we're all shocked, looking at it, who is this?
It was a text message, a bad joke from a marketer.
It just popped up and just said the joke and said, like, delete.
Lauren's pretty sure she did delete, but whatever she did, she unknowingly signed up for a subscription service. And every month, Lauren's father was charged $9.99.
The internet is loaded with sites offering ringtones and jokes, all sorts of stuff kids might think is free, especially when they have to read the fine print to find out about the cost. And they don't even need a credit card. The charges show up on the phone bill.
The marketers have deals with all the major phone companies, which get a cut. It took Doug, who runs a website devoted to kids and technology, 3 months to convince Verizon to take the charges off his bill.
Why should marketers, scam artists, why should anyone have direct access to children over purchasing decisions on a parent's credit card?
Verizon claims that most of their customers want these services, but adds that it has limited the business it does with the company that was charging Fodeman. And AT&T has added a web-based program that allows parents to block purchases from their kids' phones.
The child is not able to download a ringtone, a graphic, a video clip. They can't purchase anything from that wireless phone.
Eleanor Neal's father went one step further and started his own phone company aimed at kids.
It's a cell phone just for you.
We believe that in the next 2 years, over 10 million kids will get phones.
I'm sorry, 10 million?
10 million, yes.
That means big business, but his phone company is a pay-as-you-go service, meaning kids can only spend what their parents approve of and pay for ahead of time.
And we can help parents control that spending by putting into place a phone allowance.
An allowance that kids could use to buy ringtones and wallpaper and games without any nasty surprises for their parents. Richard Schlesinger, CBS News, Bethesda, Maryland.
If you want to learn more, go to cbsnews.com. And tomorrow night, credit card companies going after kids as young as preschool. Their sales pitch in the conclusion of Gotta Have It, the hard sell to kids. Coming up next, Faith and Begora. Could our next president be an Irish American named Obama? Tony Blair is in Washington tonight. He's making a farewell visit to President Bush before stepping down as British Prime Minister. Blair is spending the night in the White House in what's called the Queen's bedroom. Now, ironically, when the Queen was in Washington last week, she stayed across the street from the White House in Blair House. Got it? Blair in the Queen's bedroom, the Queen at Blair House. Curious, but not scandalous. And finally, Senator Barack Obama and the search for his roots. Could he be part Irish? Tonight from Moneygall on the Emerald Isle, here's Richard Roth.
It's more than just a fable floating on the Irish mist, but it's less than a proven fact. The belief that's gripped the faithful in Moneygall is that they've uncovered the newest link in an old tradition, an Irish tie to American politics.
And I began to read some of his speeches.
And that this is the ancestral home of a presidential hopeful they hardly know, named Barack Obama.
I've been calling him Abracadabra because I didn't know how to pronounce his name or who he was or whatever.
From antique ledgers found in a parishioner's basement,
well, we've got records going back to 1799.
Rector Stephen Neal thinks he's traced Obama's Irish roots on his mother's side to a great-great-great-great-grandfather named Joseph Carney. There's no absolute proof in these faded pages, but there's an abundance of inspired hope. Carney was a shoemaker whose shop once stood on a Moneygall field that's now conveniently vacant.
It may well be that this will become a major tourist attraction depending on the results of the presidential election next year, so watch this space.
The Irish like to say we live in our past. It's a sense of pride and roots that go deep. Moneygall's now got something else to consider, wondering if in its history there may be a new opportunity. Farmer John Healy certainly began thinking that. He's already figured out that if Obama's related to the Carneys, then he's part of the candidate's family too, a few times removed.
I don't know how many greats would be in it, but
a lot of greats.
There's a good few greats in it because it goes back to 1760.
The point is, it could be history in the making here.
Well, we'll hope to put Moneygall on the map.
So Moneygall now claims a personal stake in America's presidential politics.
We always like to have Irish roots in the White House.
Here's to Obama! And if the connection appears unlikely, Rector Neal says there's a lesson in that.
Well, he doesn't look Irish. No, it's not the first thing you think, is it? When you see him, no. And I think that's another element that sort of has taken people back. It makes you just realize how related we all are.
In fact, Obama's a name that would fit right in here. Richard Roth, CBS News, Moneygall, Ireland.
And that's the CBS Evening News. I'm Katie Couric. Good night.